If you have a dream, chase for it. Simulan mo nang abutin. Make it happen. Work and raise your family in Australia with AMVPS. Let's make your future bright with AMVPS. Ang migration, education, pangarap ay maabot na. AMVPS, ang kasama mo. AMVPS, 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 AMVPS.
For inquiries, visit our website amvpsolutions.info and Facebook page Aussie Migration and Visa Professional Solutions.
If you have a dream, chase for it. Simulan mo nang abutin. Make it happen. Go on and study in Australia with AMVPS. Let's make your future bright with AMVPS. Legal migration, education, pangarap ay maabot na. AMVPS, ang kasama mo. AMVPS, 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 AMVPS.
Good noon, everyone. So once again, my name is Edmund Galvez, and I am the registered migration agent of Aussie Migration and Visa Professional Solutions. In the previous discussions, we have already finished giving you information about skills assessment, registration requirement, and visa pathways for nurses and also for dentists. For today's information session, we will be focusing more on pharmacists. Now, there are also 3 stages for one to get the permanent resident visa here in Australia. If you are a registered pharmacist or eligible to be registered as a pharmacist in the Philippines, you can apply for skills assessment. For today, I will be giving you the steps, the processing times, the forms, and also the fees for the skills assessment for the pharmacist occupation. Now, there are 2 major steps for the skills assessment. Number 1 would be the application for the eligibility check, and then second would be the CAPS exam. So we will be focusing more on these 2 main steps for the skills assessment. For this discussion, I will be sharing to you my personal notes. I got this from my previous CPD, or the Continuing Professional Development with Legal Training Australia. And I have also made a couple of research so that my presentation would be more comprehensive. So allow me to share this one for you. I'm going to share my screen. So as you can see in the screen, I have divided the topics into 2. Number 1 would be the application for the eligibility check, and second would be the CAPS examination. Now you cannot proceed with the CAPS examination if you did not pass, or if you will not or cannot pass the eligibility check. Now first, let's give background about skills assessment. Skills assessment is a very important assessment for purposes of migration. Why? Because the purpose of the skills assessment is primarily to see or check whether or not the skills, the knowledge of the applicant is equivalent to what the Australian government is looking for that particular occupation. Now, the common first stage for skills assessment is the eligibility check. When we say eligibility check, for you to be able to pass this stage, you must successfully convince the assessor that the documents that you have are genuine. Now, to formally start, the skills assessing authority for pharmacists in Australia is the Australian Pharmacy Council. Now, these are their rules and policies that we need to follow to be able to pass the skills assessment stage. The first stage is to apply for eligibility check. For Filipinos who are registered pharmacists, they will fall under the knowledge stream category. Now, the criteria of this stream is that you have completed a pharmacy educational qualification. And second is that you are a registered pharmacist or eligible to register or eligible to start the registration process. Now, take note that you need not be registered at the time of skills application. What's important is that you meet the eligibility criteria for registration in the occupation of pharmacy under Philippine laws. And also the documents. So what are the documents that requires submission? Number one would be the passport. In the passport, it will show your name, your birthday, the passport number, and also the issue date and the expiry date. The second one would be the transcript of records issued by the school and also the completion letter. Third would be the registration certificate or your proof of your registration number. And last would be your resume or your CV. Now, another question that you may ask is there a requirement that I should have a sufficient number of work experience? The answer to that would be no. Well, for visa application, that can give you additional points, but for purposes of skills assessment, that is not mandatory. However, if you have a sufficient number of years of experience, then you can also have that to be counted or reviewed by the Australian Pharmacy Council. Now, what are the requirements for you to be able to have your work experience counted? The requirements is that you have worked as a retail or hospital pharmacist, and that work should not be part-time because it's stated here that it should be more than 20 hours per week, and also employment reference. Now, employment reference, there is a particular template that the Australian Pharmacy Council would like to be answered by the employers. This is the form. The one that's appearing on your screen is the form that should be filled out. It contains the applicant's personal details, the employer referee details, the job title, the organization address, and whether you work full-time or part-time. And then it will also ask about what are your primary duties. So this can be found in the job description in your contract. And then let's go back with the registration requirements. The registration requirements. The skills assessment requirements. So that is the employment reference form that needs to be filled up by the employer, and each employer must fill a separate form. Now, as to the method of application, the application for eligibility check is not a paper-based application, but an online application. So for this, you need to pay 1,260 Australian dollars. In Philippine peso, it's 44,100 using 35 pesos as equivalent to 1 Australian dollar. As to the processing times for the eligibility check, it may take 8 weeks for them to finalize. And then, as I mentioned, the forms are online, except for the work experience reference form that I just showed you a while ago. Now, let's move on to the second stage. Assuming you have passed the eligibility check. The CAPS examination, it should be taken in one sitting. And then the CAPS examination, or the so-called Knowledge Assessment of Pharmaceutical Science, consists of 2 papers. And then this is a multiple choice exam. And you need not be in Australia to take this, because the examination venue can be done in Manila. And then there are so many review materials that you can use. We can give you a sample of the materials that contains the sample questions, and the processing time for the exam is up to 4 weeks. Now, the fees costs 2,110 AUD, or 73,850 Philippine peso, using 35 pesos as equivalent to $1. Now, the examination dates are as follows: December 6 to 8, 2020, March 14 to 16, 2021, July 18 to 20, 2021, and also October 24 to 26, 2021. So, once again, this is the first stage of our information session, the steps for skills assessment. Later on in our next discussion, you will know what are the requirements for registration. Now, the outcome of the skills assessment will qualify you for the next stages, which is the application for registration and application for visa application. So again, stages: application for eligibility check, and second would be the application for the CAPS, or the so-called Knowledge Assessment of Pharmaceutical Science examination. So once again, thank you, and I hope you learned a lot from this session. See you later. Bye-bye. So once again, thank you for still being with us for today's information session. Now, we have already finished discussing the skills assessment requirement, and just a short recap. We have already learned that there are 2 main stages for the skills assessment process. One is the application for the eligibility check, where you need to submit your documents such as your passport, transcript of records, or completion letter, your work experience. And then if you are qualified, then you can continue with the CAPS exam. And then if you pass the skills assessment, then you can proceed with the second stage, which is the registration requirement. So there are a lot of things to do during the registration duration. I will be discussing to you one by one what are the things to be done, and so that I can give you a good comprehensive idea about the things that you need to do for registration. Now, I'll share you my screen. Now, as you can see, you can only proceed with the registration process and comply with the requirements for registration once you pass the skills assessment. Now, what are the things that you need to do for registration? Now, there are 3 things. First is the application for provisional registration and supervised practice. Second would be the nomination of a preceptor and the premises or the location where you will be working. And third would be to enroll in an intern training program with an accredited provider. Now, once the board gives decision and then the decision is for the grant of the provisional registration, that's the time where you can start the supervised practice, and the required number of hours is 1,824. Upon completing at least 40% of the supervised practice hours, you can now be eligible to take the written examination. And then third, once you have completed at least 75% of the total practice hours, which is 1,824, that's the time you can take the oral examination. And you cannot take the oral examination if you did not or you cannot pass the written examination. Now let's go back with the provisional registration. Now, this is the stage where you will be required to submit the English test result. And the equivalent to that would be 765, 7 overall, and 65 overall in PTE. Now, I'll share what is the equivalent of 7 in other English tests. Now, as you can see, 7 in IELTS is equivalent to 65 to 73 in PTE. Or you can also take other English tests like OET or TOEFL to get the required score. And also the criminal history. Criminal history check is important to know the character of the applicant, and in the Philippines, you can get that through NBI or the National Bureau of Investigation. And also, you cannot have your provisional registration if you don't have an indemnity insurance. Now, question, what is the purpose of the provisional registration? The main purpose of the provisional registration is to complete the internship training program with an accredited provider. So as you can see, during the registration stage, you need not only be doing supervised practice, but also you need to enroll in an internship training program. So that is one of the purposes for the provisional registration, aside from doing your supervised practice arrangements. Now let's move on with the next requirement regarding the supervised practice arrangements. Now, before you may be able to start your practice hours, supervised practice hours, you need to have an employer who will help you with the supervised practice arrangements, and also you must also identify a preceptor. A preceptor is a technical term under Australian Pharmacy Board definition. A preceptor is a pharmacist who has the responsibility to guide the intern through experiential education program, which is essential for the applicant to become a competent pharmacist. So it's like a training program wherein the preceptor, who could be a supervisor, will guide the applicant or the intern during the 1,824 hours. Now, it is also the preceptor who will assess whether the applicant possesses the entry level of competency, and also the one who will sign timesheets for the supervised practice hours. So again, during the registration stage, you need to do the following. Number 1, application for provisional registration and supervised practice. Nominate a preceptor and identify your employment premises. And third would be to enroll in an intern training program with an accredited provider. And not only that, you also need to take a written examination after you finished at least 40% of the supervised practice hours, and also pass the oral examination after passing the written examination, and also upon completion of at least 75% of the total practice hours. Now, as to forms, the form number for the application for provisional registration and supervised practice is APRO 60. For the application for approval of supervised practice is AASP 60. For the application for pharmacy intern to be a candidate for an oral examination is APOE 60. As to the costs, the cost for the written examination is 693 AUD, or in Philippine peso, 24,255, using 35 pesos as equivalent to 1 Australian dollars. So that's the registration process. Before we end, I will be sharing to you a short video presentation from the Australian Pharmacy Council to give you more idea about the registration requirements.
You've finished your pharmacy studies. Hang on. You need to be registered with us, the Pharmacy Board of Australia, and that means meeting our registration requirements before you start practicing. Before being eligible for general registration, graduates must apply for provisional registration in order to complete an internship. After securing employment, you must apply for approval of your supervised practice arrangements and enrol in an intern training program. We must approve your provisional registration application and your supervised practice application before you start practicing. Your supervised practice application must identify both the premises and your nominated preceptor. This is the pharmacist who is responsible for your supervision. Any future changes to either of these must also be approved before they can occur. Provisional registration is applied for online. See the internships page under the registration tab on our website. Applying at least 4 to 6 weeks before graduating may mean you'll be able to get registered and start work sooner. Part of applying for provisional registration means we'll also check you meet a couple of registration standards. First, we need to know that your English is good enough to practice safely, which generally means at least 2 years of your high school education is taught and assessed solely in English and in a country recognised by us. We'll need to know and check any criminal history you might have. And you'll also need to commit to holding professional indemnity insurance, so you're covered in case someone makes a claim against you. As part of your internship, you must also complete an intern training program. This can be any accredited program of your choosing. The training program will have a number of assessments that will need to be signed off by your preceptor. This lets your preceptor show that you have met entry-level competencies. Your preceptor must also sign off on the number of supervised practice hours you do each week. You too must keep a log of how you continue to develop your pharmacy knowledge and skills, because we might want to see it. During this time, you must also pass both a written exam and an oral exam. All this makes you eligible to apply for general registration. We always expect you to follow our policies, codes and guidelines for registered pharmacists. Familiarise yourself with them to provide professional and safe care to your patients. And remember that anyone can notify the board about you. They could make a complaint about your conduct, performance or health. There may even be instances when you think a colleague is placing their patients at significant risk. If this is the case, it's mandatory that you notify the Pharmacy Board of Australia. To keep you up to date, the board will email you its newsletter a few times each year. Every month we publish a communique on our website, which is also where you'll find frequently asked questions about the content in this video. We're looking forward to working with you. So congratulations on finishing your studies, and we wish you luck in your intern journey.
So finally, we are on the last part of our information session. And for this part, we'll be talking about the visa pathways. Now, we have already finished discussing to you the requirements for the skills assessment. Mainly, you have two stages. Number one is the application for eligibility check. And second stage is the taking and the passing of the CAPS exam. And then after that, if you have a positive skills assessment result, then you can proceed with the registration process, wherein you need to apply for the provisional registration and supervised practice arrangements, nominate a preceptor and an employment premises, and third would be the enrollment of the internship training program. During the internship training program, you also need to take the written exam, and after that, you can take mm, the oral exam, and then by then, if you pass everything, then you can proceed with the general registration. Now, after passing the skills assessment, you can also apply for the visa options. Now, I'll be showing to you what are the visa options for retail pharmacists and a hospital pharmacist. Now, this is a very informative website I'll be sharing to you, where you can see what are the visa options for the retail pharmacist. Now, the ANSCO code for the retail pharmacist is 251513, and the assessing authority is the A-Pharmacy, or the Australian Pharmacy Council. Now, as what you can see on the screen, these are the visa options. The first four will fall under the general skilled visas category. When we say general skilled visas, these are points tested visas, and the minimum points that is required is 65 points. 189 visa is the skilled independent visa. You need not have a state nominator, or be it in the metropolitan or in the regional area, or a family sponsor who can basically sponsor you to be able to get the required number of points, 65. The 485 visa, it's not applicable. The 491 is not applicable. 482 is the transition shortage visa, 482. It's also available with the labor agreement visa. 186, 187. After you finish 482, you can proceed with 187, 494 as well, because it's applicable. It's a good visa option, and also for the training visa, which you can use during the internship program. Now, as you can see, the occupation retail pharmacist is not applicable for 189, but applicable for 190 and 491. So what does this mean? It means that if it is on the state occupation list, and you have an employer, for example, in Victoria, you have an employer who can sponsor you, then you may be eligible for these visas. 482, it's in the medium and short-term list. And also for the DAMA agreement, you may be eligible for this type of visa. This DAMA agreement, or the DAMA labor agreement, is a type of a employer-sponsored visa for those employers who are in the far regional areas. Now, the tasks under this are the following. You are a retail pharmacist if you are doing these tasks: receiving prescriptions, checking patients' medicine histories, and ensuring optimal dosage and methods of administration and drug compatibility before dispensing, preparing and supervising the preparation and labeling of liquid medicines, ointments, powders, tablets, advising prescribers on drug incompatibility and contraindications, reviewing and monitoring the medicine therapy of individual patients, and assessing the effectiveness of the total medicine therapy, storing and preserving vaccines, supervising and coordinating the work of pharmacy technicians, pharmacy interns, and pharmacy sales assistants, and many more. So other occupations unit in this group are the hospital pharmacist and the industrial pharmacist. So let's look into the hospital pharmacist. Now, hospital pharmacist, as you can see, it's almost similar to the retail pharmacist. It's not applicable in 189, but the visa option for skilled under the skilled visas would be visa subclass 190 and 491. As to the age requirement, the general age requirement stated under the Department of Home Affairs website for state nomination and 491 is that the applicant must be under 45 years of age at the time of the application. Now, another question as to the IELTS, the minimum requirement for visa application purposes is only competent or equivalent to 6. But take note that you cannot apply for provisional registration if you only have 6. So I don't see that as a problem for visa application purposes. The getting or the complying of the competent English score. And then, of course, you cannot apply for a visa if you don't have a positive skills assessment. Now, what are the tasks under this category? So basically, it's almost just the same for this group, the one that I read a while ago. And the last one would be the industrial pharmacist. So under industrial pharmacist, the assessing authority is not a pharmacy, but the vet assess. So it's just still the same, 190, 491, 482, but it's not in the labor agreement, unlike in the retail pharmacist. Now, another question that they ask is about pharmacy technician. Let's try to look into it. As to the pharmacy technician, it's pretty much similar with the retail pharmacist. It's not in the medium to long-term list, but still in the state occupation list, short-term list. And visa options would be 190, 491, 482, employer-sponsored, DAMA, and also for the 1861, not applicable, 187, 494. So as you can see, it's still a good visa option for those who are qualified and registered pharmacists in the Philippines. For more information about your visa plans and migrating to Australia, don't hesitate to call, message us. Yandy and I are very much applicable for your visa applications. So we would like to assist and give the solutions to your visa inquiries. So that's all for this section. Thank you so much, and I hope that you would still continue watching our information session about the medical professionals. In the next session, we will be discussing more about the surgeons. And then after the surgeons, we will be discussing about the chef occupation, the childcare center manager occupation, the engineers occupation, and many more to come. So thank you so much, and I hope to talk to you soon. Just message us in our Facebook group, Aussie Visa Solutions, or send an email through my personal work email, Edmund Edmund at amvpsolutions.info, or visit our website amvpsolutions.info, and we shall immediately answer your queries. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
If you have a dream, chase for it. Simulan mo lang abutin. Make it happen. Go on and study Australia with AMVPS. Let's make your future bright with AMVPS. Legal migration, education, pangarap ay maabot na. AMVPS, ang kasama mo. AMVPS, 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 AMVPS.
If you have a dream, chase for it. Simulan mo nang abutin. Make it happen. Work and raise your family in Australia with AMVPS. Make your future bright with AMVPS. Long migration, education, pangarap ay maabot na. AMVPS, ang kasama mo. AMVPS, 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 AMVPS.
For inquiries, visit our website amvpsolutions.info and Facebook page Aussie Migration and Visa Professional Solutions.
One of the best feelings in life is having moments with the ones you love, even if you're far away from each other. Despite being 1,000 miles apart, our feelings haven't changed. Being beside you is a wish that I've long desired. With professional help, the long wait is over. Bridge the gap with Aussie Migration and Visa Professional Solutions. You can study, work, or live in Australia. With the help of our experts, you can fix your migration and visa application efficiently. Now, love doesn't have to be distant. Call us now.
If you have a dream, chase for it. Simulan mo nang abutin. Make it happen. Work and raise your family in Australia with AMVPS. Make your future bright with AMVPS. Long migration, education, pangarap ay maabot na. AMVPS, ang kasama mo. AMVPS, 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 AMVPS.
For inquiries, visit our website amvpsolutions.info and Facebook page Aussie Migration and Visa Professional Solutions.